was contacted by the Izumi pen company, a relatively new company in the United Kingdom, and that company has released its own ink in collaboration with B.R.E. Pardon me. It is called Pink Rose Gold, and it has rose gold shimmer in it, and I was asked to review this ink. So this is shimmer ink. That means that you have to shake it very well before use. I have inked up some pens. I have played around with it a bit. It comes in very, sorry about the noise. It comes in very cute packaging, and that's pretty much it. So I have some pens, as I said. I have some paper. This is a used paper. It's nice fountain pen friendly paper, and I thought we would do a little bit of an overview of this ink. The idea was that I would review this much sooner, but initially when I was contacted it was -40 here in Alberta, and I requested not to be sent an ink at that point, because you can imagine what happens to ink when it's that cold out. Now, I'm starting off here with a Wingsung 699. I took at least one clear pen so you can kind of see the ink in the pen. As you can see, it is a a somewhat thicker ink. So I have found, and the website does warn that this ink may not flow equally well in all pens. So you really shake it again before inking up the pens, but even in your pen you're asked to kind of roll it around a bit to make sure those shimmers stay dispersed properly. And here we have a Wingsung 699. This is a fine nibbed pen. Let's see what happens when I write with this. This, for the record, is not the wettest of pens. So here the ink will look relatively dry. That was a fine nib. Sorry, I was struggling to close up that valve. Let's take a medium nib. This is, I'm rotating the pen before we start, this is a Molteni model 54. This is a medium nib, this is a wetter nib. So I think this gives a slightly nicer view of the ink, of the color. With an ink like this, proper pen hygiene is a must, and that is something also clearly outlined on the Izumi website. Again, it seems a bit thicker. It almost, I mean, it's not exactly, but my first thought was it's almost like an acrylic paint. It's not quite that thick, obviously, but I think this would be wonderful with dip nibs, by the way. I didn't really have any at hand, but it would be a cool ink for that. Okay, let's do a broad nib. This is a Gioia Partenope with a broad nib. It's a good flow, and I would expect that if one were to leave these pens capped for a few days, you might get some startup issues, not uncommon with shimmering inks and inks of this intensity. But it's a nice pink, I would say. Okay, here we have an Opus 88. This is an Omar with a 1.1mm italic nib. So I'm just going to put in I for italic. And I felt that here might be just a little bit of flow issue, because this nib does not seem as wide as it usually is. But as you can see, there is good flow. The pen does not run dry or anything. Put that away. And then the final pen that I wanted to use is this Fountain Pen Revolution Jaipur version 2, because it has not only a very fine nib, but it has an ultra flex nib. So seeing this ink in a nice flex nib, that sounded like an interesting idea to me. So here we have flex and a remarkably smooth writer, by the way. So I'm using a little bit of pressure now to get a somewhat nice wet line. See how that dries up. Of course, there will be a picture of this writing on the website. Now let's do some actual flex writing. I think there is some really nice potential for this ink in a flex nib, and especially because it struck me as slightly thicker. It's very nice because it sticks well between the tines, and that makes flex writing a very interesting experience. So, where do you get this ink? From Izumi. I'll link to the company in the description of the YouTube video and on the website. One test I did want to do is a bit of water. Now this ink is not sold with the claim that it's a waterproof ink. I'm just kind of wondering how waterproof it is. So I'm just taking this, I'm letting that dry up a little bit. Let me dab that a little bit to speed things up a bit. So you buy this ink from Izumi and nowhere else, because it's, pardon me, it is exclusive to them. Let's see what happens. It is sold for £10.95, so you can convert that to your currency of choice, and of course it's the UK, so there would be some shipping. Often interesting that if you purchase from outside the EU, you don't have to pay the value-added tax, right? So you can often save a little bit of money, but that's it. I don't think it's particularly expensive for inks. It's also not the most affordable ink. It's somewhere in a nice price range, I think, for what the ink is. I'm going to try to... I'm just going to see what happens there. Well, it's not terrible. I mean, it clearly is not exactly waterproof, but again, it's not sold as being a waterproof ink either. I was just curious. Because I also have a lot of my viewer friends are artists, and they always ask me whether the inks are waterproof. So here we have it. I will make sure that there is a picture of this on the website so you can check it out. It is a nice tender ink. I can't speak anymore. Tender pink, I would say. This would be a cute one for love letters and such, but it flows well. I have not really had issues with this, but again, you do need to move your pens a bit. You do need to clean them very well after using this. If you do all those things, I wouldn't really expect any issues. So there you have it. You will see this ink on a feed. Yeah, that's because it is that type of ink. Like it often looks worse than it is. It will clean out, but it's just something to be prepared for. That's the point with the shimmering ink, right? You just get these kinds of effects, and that's why I have put this in pens that I can take apart entirely and clean. So there you have it. A very kind thank you to Izumi for sending me this ink. I'm sorry it took me a while to review it, but here we are. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.